And now it's time for Focus. Gender and women's rights were long expected to be a major issue in this year's U.S. presidential campaign, with Hillary Clinton seen as a frontrunner from the first days of the primary. But it's Republican candidate Donald Trump's comments towards women that have gotten the most attention in recent weeks. A tape was recently released showing him bragging about sexually assaulting women he finds attractive, and several women have come forward with testimonials of inappropriate behavior. Though his words and actions are rebuffing a growing number of women, some continue to stand by their candidate. Gallagher Fenwick and Philip Crowther bring you this report.
Despite the misogyny, despite the sexism, despite the bragging about sexual assault caught on camera, they are still on his side and encourage others to join them.
Trump all the way! Oh, we love you! Women for Trump! Women for home!
It is an uphill struggle at times.
Hillary all the way! We'll make America great for you too!
There are women volunteering for the Trump campaign up and down the country. They are more than happy to put their time and money into a cause that could not be more controversial right now.
I have 2 children, and I have a young son with a disability, and my daughter is 14 years old. I'm looking for a better country for them. I feel that Mr. Trump can offer this country a lot more with his business experience, his expertise.
Over in the U.S. Capitol, women of the same political persuasion are also uniting, but for a different candidate. These Republican women reject the man who has taken over their party. The rise against all odds of Donald Trump took them by surprise.
I think that a lot of Republicans, myself included, just sort of laughed at him instead of really viewing him as an formidable candidate, and not enough was done early on to stop him from getting the nomination.
They are conservative women and accuse the Republican nominee of betraying their values. They decided to switch sides, a difficult but necessary choice, according to Camden and Sarah.
The movement is growing and more people are saying we should never have let this happen in the first place, and we have to stop it now before Donald Trump is in the White House.
And there's something about being people that are outward, like have had the soul searching that we have had, which is that I've always been a Republican, and how is it that this is the case now, and that we're actually openly about that and talking about it? People are now saying, gosh, I'm in the same boat.
Right.
So it's, like she said, more mainstream than you think. People are looking for that outlet and that resource.
But it's not only women, and it's not only this video that raises questions about his fitness to be our president.
They will vote for Hillary Clinton, but they promise that it's a one-off for one election only.
Americans, Latinos.
We're not Republican women becoming Democrats. We're not Republican women against Trump. And so we, at our core still have our Republican beliefs and, certain policy ideas that we think are the, way to do things.
So while many female voters have indeed turned their backs firmly on Donald Trump, that does not always mean an extra vote for his rival. Hillary Clinton has not generated enough enthusiasm with the Democratic Party faithful.
I don't like everything about her. But who likes everything about any candidate? I don't think she's evil, and Donald just scares the hell out of me.
So it is challenging for those of us who do support Hillary to kind of understand the other side of the picture.
I also think there's a general sentiment that our politicians have not been working well.
In the final stretch of this long campaign, the Democratic Party has brought out its star power. The goal is to convince young voters and the largest possible number of women.
If a candidate regularly and flippantly makes cruel and insulting comments about women, about how we look, how we act, well, sadly, that's who that candidate really is.
These high school students have not quite reached voting age yet, but they see the historic potential.
If she wins, that's bringing us up more, and I feel like she's a good inspiration to young women today.
Yeah, and the fact that she's like going to do stuff for her education.
There is another choice somewhere between a man accused of misogyny and a woman accused by her rival of being the devil. Many undecided voters are not sure they will vote at all.
For more on this story, our guest is Françoise Coste, a historian and professor at Toulouse Jean Jaurès University. Thank you so much for joining us on France 24. Professor, how important is the women's vote in this election?
It is tremendously important. Historically, in the last few elections, American women have voted in larger numbers than men. Plus, there's also a famous gender gap in the US where female voters have voted for the last 40 years more in favor of the Democrats than for the Republicans. So that's the basis, but it's even more true, if you will, this year. If you look at what happened in 2012, Obama won American women by 8 points compared to Mitt Romney, the Republican. According to polls right now, Hillary Clinton is leading among female voters by 15 points. So the gender gap, which has always existed, seems to have doubled for this election.
And would you say that was in part because of Trump's comments about bragging, about sexual assault, or is this something that has been around longer than that?
Well,
I mean, is it because Hillary Clinton is a woman, is what I was saying?
Those are three very interesting factors. Historically, the main factor is the fact that Democrats support women's rights, whereas since 1980, the Republican Party has strongly opposed abortion rights, and even sometimes, if it's never explicit, has questioned contraception rights. So that's the basis. On top of that, of course, you have the first female candidate for a major party in American history, which is an extra motivator, but which I think at the same time, rather surprisingly, is not central in the debates. If you compare with the role the racial issue played 8 years ago when Obama was elected, American people were highly aware that they were about to elect the first black president. And this time around, I find that the prospect of a female president is almost secondary in people's thinking, which is surprising. And finally, of course, there is the fact that a lot of women, including, and that was very well shown in your story there, traditionally Republican women, conservative or centrist women, because of the tape, because of the many accusations against Trump, are switching to the other side because they cannot, for themselves or for their daughters, they cannot bring themselves to vote for Trump.
Now, how do you explain the level of misogyny in this election? I mean, of course, you have Trump's comments, but in the beginning of Hillary Clinton's campaign, she was very much forthright in talking about her role as a mother and as a grandmother and as the possible first female president. And since then, even in the last few days, she hasn't really countered Trump's image so much as a sexual predator. She's been very quiet about that. Is it because of her own role in trying to quiet women who had affairs with her husband?
Well, I think there are two things. Your analysis is completely correct. I think first that her campaign must be aware that part of her problems, the fact that she's not leading as much as she should be leading ahead of Trump, has to do with the fact that I think a lot of Americans, men and women, are not ready for a female president. Obviously, it looks like more people were okay with a black president than with a female president. So symbolically, it's a handicap for her. I think in particular because of the military dimension of the presidency. The president is commander-in-chief of the military, and obviously a lot of people have trouble imagining a woman in this martial position. And then, of course, there's a handicap represented by Bill Clinton. If her husband had always been a model of respect for women and women's rights, then it would be easier for her. But she has this burden of the 1990s and the many accusations, even if they're incorrect, if they're excessive. Monica Lewinsky was real. That scandal was real. And obviously, American people have not forgotten.
Thank you so much for joining us on France 24. Françoise Coste, an historian and professor at Toulouse Jean Jaurès University. Thank you so much for joining us.